I'm doing well. Thank you for
Good.
having me, Dr. Smith.
Yes. So just to let you know, generally we'll, and a lot of times we'll talk about the position and talk about our school. So IS is a K-5 school. There would be a team here of like classroom teachers as well as the assistant principal, maybe another specialist who would sit in on the interview. And then we would ask you questions and then give you an opportunity to ask questions at the end. And then phase 2 would be, so like first round, and then second round would be teaching a lesson like in the gym with kids, and we would come in and observe. So that would be pretty much the whole process. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me why you're the best candidate for this position.
Well, I came into my program a little later. Let me start here. My name is Nicholas Ramon. I have a beautiful wife and 2 children at this moment. They're 15 and 16 years old. And so I feel like I have a lot of background in early childhood development and stuff because of raising children. I also, right out of high school, worked for the Boys and Girls Club for about 10 years. And I quickly rose through the ranks in that area where I began as a gym staff. And then I started running my own branch site. And so I was actually the coordinator director of a branch for a while, had people under me, was doing all the lessons for everything. And then I got moved to a bigger branch where I was then the team coordinator. So strictly working with teenagers and doing everything for them. Left that, went back to school so I can pursue a career in physical education.
Okay. Excuse me, thank you. In a typical 30-minute lesson, what is your balance between instruction and activity time?
Typically, we want to get at least 50% of MVPA, which is moderate to vigorous physical activity. And so instruction time is trying to be as brief as possible, so that way we can get them active as much as possible. And particularly because of these 30-minute classes, we're trying to get them through the instruction, less management, through quickly transitioning from one activity to another, so that way they get their full time of activity while they can.
What is your classroom management style?
I would say I hold them responsible for their actions. I hold them, the accountability for me is I will give them a verbal warning of if misbehaviors happening or off-task behaviors happening. Secondly, will be a quick, maybe 2-minute timeout with an explanation of why they're sitting out. And then for me, there's a third strike. If you've taken my time enough times where I've had to sit you out now the second time, you're distracting me from the rest of the class and everything. And so from that time on, you'd probably be sitting out for quite a while for the rest of the class time.
Okay. Tell us what your yearly block plan might include. So what are you teaching fall, winter, and spring?
If it's going to be seasonal, I like to try to match up some of my activities where I can do things like if we can go outside, so striking games, net wall games would probably be played outside. So that would be like more springish time. Fall times would be more indoor games as well as winter. And so I would try to implement as many sports activities through the seasons to implement during those times.
How do you establish a classroom climate conducive to learning?
It all starts with a positive feedback climate. Teaching with the social emotional learning theory going into it, so that way students are going to be more responsible for their own behavior and want to be motivated to do what they're doing. I like to teach again with a lot of self-determination theory as well, building their competency, their autonomy, and their relation with myself, the environment, and the students, so that way they feel more inclined to participate and take those bigger risks to doing things they may not feel comfortable to do.
Okay, thank you. What does equity mean to you? How are you going to make sure your classroom is inclusive? And thinking about our emergent bilingual students, we have about like 50% of our population are emergent bilingual students. Our students experiencing disabilities, we're an inclusive school, or an inclusion school, and then our students experiencing poverty as well.
Equity to me in the classroom is to try to make sure that I have everyone included. At the moment, student teaching, I have a couple students who come in and they're in general education, but they might have some special needs that need to be, some of the activities might need to be modified for them. One of my students doesn't allow basically someone within like 6 feet of her. And so we have to try to set up an area for her that's going to be away from the other students but still involved with the activities that are being done. It's the same with one of my other students, again with special needs, who comes in, and it's been accommodated now that he gets to come in every day at the end of the day, so that way his activity level gets to be increased a bit more than it would be if he was just trying to be involved with everyone else when he doesn't get to have that one-on-one to work with him.
Good. All right. How would you be a team member within our school and our district? What contributions could you make?
I'm a total team player. I try to make sure that I do my best in everything that I do. So if I'm being asked to do something, I make sure I do it to the fullest. And especially when it comes to big school functions or activities and fundraisers and stuff like that, I make sure that I give it my full effort, so that way everybody knows that if I'm doing it, people might follow along and do the same thing, and so it'll increase the, what's that word I'm looking for? The motivation of other people, just to try to get them to do the other things as well.
Yeah.
So I try to play along and do my part.
So that's, and you already answered some of this, but how comfortable are you with running large school-wide events, including dance parties, jog-a-thons, field days, celebrations?
Going back to what I said previously, Boys and Girls Club, I've had to do a lot of those and been in charge of stuff like that as well. Fundraising, backpack runs, different activities or different functions that had gone on at that time as well. So I don't shy away from having to talk in front of large crowds. I don't shy away from leading large crowds. So it would be a fun experience.
All right. So here's a scenario. One of the students in Miss Bradley's first grade class is not following your PE expectations. Please explain what your approach would be if she is quietly doing nothing. So the student is quietly doing nothing, or is running around the gym not listening to instructions, or is dumping out equipment, throwing things at peers, and screaming. So those three scenarios. So let's talk about the first one. The student's quietly doing nothing, just standing there in the gym.
So typically, like I had mentioned, I would do the 3-strike thing, but with this student, it seems like it would be a reward to be sat out. And so not sitting them out, it wouldn't be an option. It would be more probably me being there to motivate them to move around, maybe get them like a peer helper or something like that to give them some motivation and some positive feedback, so that way they might be inclined to participate a little more. But yeah, not sitting that person out would be the last thing on there, because that would be the reward for them.
Okay. A student, a first grader, is running around the gym not listening to instructions. You've experienced this already,
Yes.
because I know some of our first graders.
Yes. I try to, again, give them a little verbal warning. Hey, this is your warning. This is what's going on. Fix this type of behavior and we can move on, type of thing. And again, with the first grader, it starts early with accountability. And so, if you can get them to start to know that the misbehavior during class time isn't going to get them rewarded to do fun activities, then hopefully you can alter that type of behavior further on in the grade levels.
Sure, yep. First grader is dumping out equipment, throwing things at peers, and screaming.
Safety is always my number one concern. And so if someone is doing something along those lines, I would probably have to gauge the situation to see how, what the hazard level may be at that time. So whether it be getting students out of the way or out of the classroom, or calling for behavior support to try to get me to calm the student down so that way there's no further damage to equipment or somebody else, potentially even themselves, would probably be my next steps in there to make sure that that student's safe, my other students are safe, and things are not being broken.
Perfect, thank you. What questions do you have for us?
Well, my first question would be is ideally for a physical education teacher, like what would be like the best, oh no, I shouldn't say that actually. Oh, I had questions in my mind and now they're all gone.
That's okay.
Would you be able to send what like the yearly salary would be, like a link or a website to something that I could look over that stuff as well?
Yeah, and HR generally takes care of some of that. So I would talk with our HR coordinator, and she would reach out. She would ask you probably like your experience level and things like that, because we take all of that into accountability when we figure out like where you're at on the pay scale. So HR would be the person that could talk through that more so, and give you the yearly salary, and then like your contract days, how many days a year you would work, as well as like your benefits package for insurance, retirement, and like your sick leave. You know, in the teacher contract, it's you have like 10 sick days, you have 3 discretionary days, and then within the calendar, and the calendar committee revises the calendar every year, and so we would look, or they decide like how many work days teachers get, which I think is like 4 work days, and then it looks like 4 professional days, and professional development, so all of that would be tied in there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you can give me 3 words that would best describe a great physical education teacher, what would they be?
I would say community oriented, right? And that's not, but it's a phrase, community oriented. Somebody that implements instruction and then like engagement. So, and I can explain that a little bit, but so like your cooperating teacher, right, or mentor teacher, she brings in vocabulary and even, you know, some read aloud into the activity. So she has a really great balance of instruction and purpose, and then activity. You know, it's not just like kids are playing games in PE, which is fun and engaging, but there's also that instructional piece in there, which I feel is really important. And she, you know, she has her data with her, the clickers, is that what they're called? And she like has her data and pulls that data as well. So I think that is really important. And then like the community piece, and you know, that was part of the question. She runs like Monday morning assembly, that's a big community time. And then like color run at the end of the school year, that's super fun, lots of volunteers. We even get like former students from the middle school. She has kids, they graduate, when they're graduating, they ask her to come to her graduation, to their graduation. So like that relationship piece is really, really important, but she she's very successful at
Right.
building those relationships. So that's, you know, she sets a really high standard as a PE teacher. And I mean, I share with everyone, I'm like, I have one of the best PE teachers I've ever, you know, observed, I've ever worked with, because she does have that balance, just like her heart,
Obstacle course.
obstacle course, and then like the vocabulary words and teaching the vocabulary of the heart, and then kids are in class writing about the heart and all that. Like, that's really pretty cool, the connections, and then what kids are learning.
I'm extremely lucky to be studying under her right now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, she's pretty fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any other questions?
No, I think that's going to be it from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I think you did a really great job
Thank you.
answering the questions. I think talking about like students' accountability is really important, because we do want those little bits of accountability along the way as students get older. Talking about your experience, you know, Boys and Girls Club, and having like more of those bigger events and all that, that's like impressive. And then like having those experiences, which I didn't know about you, so that also is like just new information, but that's something too, like, okay, he has experience with children, like K-12 or what have you, so that is really important. And then I would just say that when you're preparing, the first question pretty much guaranteed is like, tell us about you, or why you're the best fit. So you'll want to have like a ready response, not robotic or anything, but you'll want to have that response like in your mind. Okay, I want to make sure that I talk about my experience, talking about my family, all of those pieces that you did talk about. You'll want to make sure that you say that in the next interview too. And then at the end, it's always, what questions do you have for us? And your questions are good, and you'll want to make sure that you have those questions like ready and identified too.
Yep.
And especially the one about like 3 words, that was great, because then I had to talk through what I look for like in a PE teacher, which is good information for you. Yeah. And then at the end, I would say we're interviewing candidates, today and tomorrow, or for the rest of this week. And then either myself or the assistant principal will get back to you about moving to the next round and teaching a lesson for us.
Okay.
Okay?
I know that typically you would have this first.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. There is the resume, and then there is the cover letter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this all comes electronically to me, so I get to see some of that experience. But it is good for you to reiterate that verbally, because sometimes the rest of the team hasn't seen like what I've seen. And sometimes most of the time I make a packet so that they can kind of skim real quickly your letter and then your resume. The other thing too is that I look at those they're anonymous, but as soon as you apply for a position and then you put in like your references, there's like an electronic survey that goes to them, and then it bounces back to me, and I really look at the references, because that survey tells a lot about someone. So that's really important too with deciding who your references are going to be.
Okay.
And really, I think that's about it. Can I keep this, or do you?
If
or
you'd
is
like,
this
yeah.
yours?
No, you can totally keep that.
Okay. And then we have a position open now. if you want to be in Central. But if not, that's cool too.
Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate the
Yeah,
offer.
it's open. So
Okay.
I'm going to give it probably another week or so. Have it posted, and then I'll start interviews, and we'll have candidates down there teaching PE.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it, Dr. Smith.
Thanks. Enjoy your